Dear brothers, morning boys. I'm in a fired up mood this morning, which is great for most people. But I got some stuff get off my chest. So, been in a big moment of life recently, specifically business-wise, where one of my ultimate goals is to banish the weakness physically in men. To start addressing the fact that we are weaker, softer, and quite simply just less capable than we should be. And it's been on my heart. It's been something that I've been working on hard. And I'm going to talk about a couple of points that don't get talked about often, but are stats that all men listening to this and abroad should know. So I'm going to talk about the US specifically, because this stuff is, I think people think they know this, but maybe they don't. So let's talk about obesity in men is at least 42.5% of the adult male population over 18. It'll be 50% if it isn't already. Those stats are coming from 17 and 18. So half of the adult male population is obese. And one of the arguments you get is, well, obesity is kind of a hard thing because BMI is not a great calculator. There are some people that are big, very rugged and strong, and they have a high BMI. Throw out those very small number of people, because that's a couple percentage points maybe. You're still going to be about half of adult men are obese. So then the next question is, well, what percentage of boys are obese? Between the ages of 12 and 18, 12 and 19, almost a quarter of all boys, of all teenagers, are obese. Gentlemen, a quarter of young men are overweight. A quarter. Obesity being probably our greatest predictor of decreased lifespan and health. One of the big changes that we've seen, the reason that you've seen rates of disease go up that kill people across the last 80 years, is the change in obesity. It's the easiest link that you can see, correlated all the way up. The fatter we have become as men, the more we are dying earlier and from a lot of really shitty stuff. So the question would then beg, well, how many men are actually working out based on, some kind of physical activity guideline? Which, fun fact, we have. This research all exists. What's crazy is that you're talking about less than about a quarter of men, roughly a quarter of men, meet the recommended physical activity guidelines in the US. A quarter. So half of us are overweight, and only a quarter of us are actually exercising enough, which somewhere equates to 150 minutes of moderate aerobic activity a week. We typically classify it as zone 2, that 60 to 70% of max heart rate, and 2 days of resistance training, total body resistance training. 150 minutes of aerobic exercise, 2 days of resistance training a week. A quarter of the adult male population gets that exercise. So again, I'm going to go down to children now. What percentage of children are getting enough exercise? Between the ages of 6 and 17, it's about a quarter. A quarter of young people, and male, female is about the same for kids. A quarter of young men, a quarter of boys are getting enough physical activity, which is about 60 minutes of exercise, if you will, or of moderate to vigorous activity a day. A quarter. I don't think it takes a mathematician or this philosopher or some kind of teacher of logic. It does not take a brain scientist, a brain surgeon, if you will, to realize that the less active we are, the more likely we are to have obesity, the more likely we are to die young because of a lack of health. More than that, the more unhealthy us adult men are, the more unhealthy the next generation of men are. The more likely they are to have far greater issues later in life. And so, as I'm sitting here this morning in this fired up mood and thinking about the fact that I've made this big push recently to get men moving again, it bothers me to absolutely no end that we are still having conversations amongst men that it is too difficult to exercise. We don't have the time to do it. It's not important. Guys, of the 15 big killers in the world in terms of diseases, cardiovascular disease, cancer, etc., of the 15 of those, 14 of them, men die more at a higher percentage than women. We are dying at a greater rate of all of the big diseases in the world. And a big part of this is because we are quite simply unhealthy. We are overweight, we are soft, we are slovenly, we're gluttonous. We've allowed all of that vice to hinder our lives. And the more, again, slovenly, gluttonous, lazy that we are, the worse the world becomes because there are no strong men around. I do understand that we need to be mental. I posted about this yesterday. At the end of the day, we need to be pious. Second, we need to have knowledge that we assimilate into wisdom. And third, we have to be physically capable. But if you're not physically capable of doing anything, listen, gentlemen, I know I'm jacked up this morning. The next generation of men who are currently a quarter of which overweight, and another a quarter of that generation as well isn't exercising enough, or they're the only 3/4 of that generation isn't exercising enough. In 30 years, less than that, 10 years, 15 years, you're going to have an even higher percentage of the population that is overweight, that is unhealthy, that is sickly. What happens to the generation after that? Are we going to have 3/4 of the American male population that is overweight and unhealthy? You're going to kill off your entire existence. Then what? I don't even know if the world would make it through that. And maybe some people are okay with that. I don't know. I disagree with that. This is why yesterday I was talking about if you don't have a true moral compass, then nothing is nothing. You have no meaning. There's nothing to gauge your actions against. And so I believe, and I'm assuming the men listening to this believe, that we are called to lead, protect, guide, educate the world and our families around us. Part of that, fellas, you must be healthy and fit enough to educate these people. If you're not, it's going to be awfully hard to do. And I know I'll get the rebuttal of, oh, well, some people have diseases or they have a handicap or they had a car accident or this or that. I get that. Guess what? That's a very small percentage of people. And God bless them for continuing to push through when life has given them difficulty. We can learn. They can teach through their suffering. I get that. But the gross majority of adult men are just staying too slovenly. And that is leaking into the next generation. They're watching you in your gluttony. They're watching you in your laziness and going, I can do that. That's fine. Dad does it. Uncle does it. Cousin does it. Brother does it. My friends' families do it. What are we doing? we must take control of this, fellas. This isn't hard either. We're not talking rocket science here. You've got to start exercising. You must start training now, immediately, today. You cannot continue to waste time, because when you look at what happens as you gain weight and you become more lazy, life becomes really shitty. Your chances of dying of pretty much everything go through the roof. Are there exceptions to the rule? Absolutely. There's the 400-pound guy who smokes 3 packs a day and lives till he's 100. I am so happy for him. Good for him. Guess what? He's one of a million. The rest of us who are allowing these things to eke into our lives are having a lot of issues, especially once we get out of our 30s. Get into your 40s, 50s, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I never had these issues before. Well, guess what? You're overweight. You haven't been training at all. And now, chickens come to roost. Listen, fellas, I'm sorry, I'm probably sounding a little bit stern this morning to all of you who probably are following through with this. But this message has to get out to more men. Half of us are overweight over the age of 18. A quarter of our boys are overweight. A quarter of our boys are getting enough exercise. 3/4 of them aren't. 3/4 of adult men are not exercising enough. That is a giant population, fellas. And that will only get worse, as we have seen over the last couple of decades. This must be stopped, and it stops by all of you listening, spreading the word, and you yourself continuing to train hard, getting after it in the gym, showing young people the importance of keeping your body healthy, being physically strong, why that matters. That's where that moral compass, where that true north comes in, because men are called to be that, and the world goes to hell in a handbasket when men are not that way. It becomes rudderless, leaderless, broken. We can change that today. I encourage all of you, if you have friends, you have brothers, you have family members who are not getting after it, plead with them, get after them. More importantly, be the example to them. I can't tell you how many men I've had reach out, be like, hey man, I started working out because I really appreciated the fact that you were getting after it. I appreciated that you were trying to chill out on drinking. I appreciated that you talked about how you need to be strong for your family so that you can protect them, love them, show them the importance of being healthy. I started to make some changes in my life. Be the example to your brothers, fellas. And then go teach, go show people that. Be about it, talk about it, make it a part of your life. A part of your purpose in life is to show the next generation how to get after it. I'm going to leave it at that today, boys. Fired up on a Friday. Maybe Fired Up Fridays is going to be a thing. I don't know. It's been on my heart recently, but I know that all of us can make a difference in this, and we need to. I love you all. God bless. Be strong. Let's get after it today. No more screwing around. I'm out.